Hey, folks. My name is Jeremy Greenberg. I'm a policy counsel with FPF, and I'm joined here today by my colleague, John Verdi. And also, we're joined by our friend Jackson, who's helping us record this session. And yeah, we're here and we're just, catching some fish.
Well, Jeremy, as you say, I'm John Verdi. I'm the VP of Policy at the Future of Privacy Forum, and we are colleagues. So thank you so much for inviting me on this virtual fishing trip. Just a level set for everybody who's watching. I am sitting in my home with a VR virtual reality headset strapped to my face. Jeremy is sitting in his home a few miles away, and we are sharing this virtual environment. Ostensibly, we're here to catch some fish. I have some gaming controllers in my hand that are part of the virtual reality system, and that enables me to cast and to reel things in and maybe to get a bite at the end of my fishing line. But Jeremy, we're not just here to catch fish today. We're not just here to chat. We're here to talk about some important issues. So why are we really here today?
Yeah, thanks, John. So the real reason we're here today is in anticipation and in celebration of a release of FPF's new report titled Augmented Reality and Virtual Reality, Privacy and Autonomy Considerations in Immersive Digital Worlds. So we're here. We are going to be talking about virtual reality and some topics involving our new report.
So I appreciate you inviting me. You set up this private room. You set up the opportunity for us to chat with each other in virtual reality without other users popping in. And it's a beautiful scene. I think I see a couple of fish out there, some bigger than others. But is this a fictional location? What location did you pick? Is this fictional? Is this a virtual representation of a real place?
So this is actually a virtual representation of the Han River in South Korea. So this is what it would be like if we were, in the physical world in South Korea fishing on the Han River.
Well, looks like I got a bite. I don't know if he's going to reel in or not, but we'll see. Got away. That's life. Jeremy, we are in a beautiful virtual location, and the technology is super impressive. And I hope that comes across to folks who are not experiencing this in 3 dimensions, but are experiencing it in a recording in 2 dimensions. It really is quite striking. You did a ton of research with experts, with primary sources on the technology, on the policy, on the law, to try to better understand how this virtual reality technology and related technologies impact data protection and privacy. So for folks who are thinking about making a leap and experiencing virtual reality or augmented reality, why should folks care about data protection and privacy when it comes to virtual worlds?
Yeah, that's a really great question, John. So there are a number of reasons why folks should be thinking about the privacy and data protection concerns in VR. Many of these concerns stem from the fact that in order to engage in a virtual experience, a massive amount of personal data is collected by the individual, or collected from the individual about the individual. And a lot of this data is sensitive. It's biometric data or data related to that player's biology. So we're talking things like, head movements, neck movements in virtual reality, eye gaze tracking, which is important to understand where the user is looking within the game, where they're not looking. Also, there is a necessary tracking of the user within their particular space in which they're enjoying the technology. So through the use of various sensors, we have to have a sense of where the user is in a room to know where to serve them the proper reality, to place them where they want to be inside of a virtual world. So that's definitely one of the main concerns that drives a lot of the privacy questions in this space. Another concern or another question that is particularly interesting, John, I see that you've not named yourself John. You're going by a pseudonym. Same with me, and same with our friend Jackson. And really, the use of avatars and those sorts of questions involving privacy are of utmost importance in VR. Because I am in a virtual space embodying a character, I want to be able to represent myself the way I want to represent myself. If I want to go by my name that I go by in the physical world, that's great. If I want to adopt a new name or a new identity in the virtual world, that's also an option for me. It adds customization to the experience. It allows the user to feel, private, and it gives the user a sense of presence. They're able to identify the way they want to identify. So they're able to enjoy the virtual world and feel like they're a part of it. And those are just some of the major privacy and ethical kind of questions that folks are starting to look at in this space.
Well, Jeremy, you're exactly right. I'm not using my real name here on the virtual fishing trip. And it strikes me that the more I learn about VR and the more experience I have in VR, there are real lessons that we can learn about protecting privacy that we have learned in the browser or app-based space online. And some of them are quite transferable into the virtual space. As you note, I'm using a pseudonym right now. And that's because having my real name associated with my virtual avatar in a fishing trip isn't really necessary. And users often take privacy protective measures like using pseudonyms on various platforms online today. And it seems like that sort of thing might translate in a reasonable way into the virtual space. But you also discovered that virtual reality and other sorts of extended reality technologies pose unique questions or heightened questions when it comes to data protection. What are some of those?
Yeah, thanks, John. There are a number of heightened questions here. So the first is, like with other technologies, in order to function, sometimes you necessarily have to collect personal information about an individual. So the example I always think of is if I'm using a map app or a directions app on my phone, or I want to discover, what's the nearest, Thai restaurant. Necessarily, in order to figure those things out, I might have to turn my location tracking on my device. So there is a necessary collection of data. But again, in virtual reality, the collection of data is much more robust, and it really needs to happen in order for this technology to function. So for example, a lot of data involving eye tracking, such as gaze and eye movement, the tracking of pupillometry, so the measurement and the change of the size of my pupils, all of that is necessary in order to bring the proper parts of the virtual world into focus, to make sure that where I am looking is properly rendered. This data collection is absolutely necessary for me to experience even the most, simple thing in virtual reality. So that's definitely one area where these concerns are heightened. Also, some other ethical questions that come about are, when folks talk about things like, potentials for harassment online in traditional social media. There's a lot of concern there. But some of these concerns are magnified when in the virtual space. So instead of me, maybe having, someone say something or do something online on, my social media page, that can really have a negative effect on an individual. But when those sorts of comments, those negative feelings are happening real time in a world that a user is experiencing, that's really when those potential negative feelings, emotions, can be especially prevalent and harmful. And this is just, what I'm talking about here is virtual reality. But there are a number of other types of reality as well. Are there, any specific questions you have, John, in terms of, different technologies involving extended reality?
Well, sure. As you've gone through this research, you've identified virtual worlds as a really important aspect of extended reality. You've also identified other sorts of worlds like augmented reality worlds. And the paper that FPF is publishing makes clear distinctions between augmented reality and virtual reality. It might be helpful to talk a little bit about what the differences are, and then we could talk about why they're meaningful, because I think there's some key differences there.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, John. There are definitely some key differences that we have to make note of. So these terms like virtual reality, augmented reality, extended reality, they're sometimes used interchangeably, but there really are key differences there. So we right now are in this virtual environment that's all about immersion, creating a virtual world. Augmented reality, on the other hand, is really about taking the physical world and adding digital or virtual content into or on top of that world. So today, a lot of folks enjoy AR through the use of their phone, their mobile device, the camera on their device. They're able to place virtual content, whether it's a game, virtual artwork, whatever it may be, onto the physical environment in which they're currently navigating, which they're currently living in. Now, we also have another technology called mixed reality, or MR, which in some ways is similar to AR in that it involves placing digital elements into the physical environment, but there's this extra layer of interactivity where changes to the physical environment might impact the virtual content, or changes to the virtual content might impact the physical reality. And then we also have the term XR, or extended reality. And this term really serves as an umbrella for AR, VR, MR, as well as some other forms of immersive tech. So yeah, that's a really important question. We really need to understand what technology we're talking about when we talk about the unique privacy and ethical questions.
So those technologies sound slightly different from virtual reality. And one of the key differences to me is the way in which users engage with the tech. As I said, right now, I'm sitting in my home. I have a VR headset strapped to my face, and I cannot see any of the room around me right now. I am fully immersed in the Han River environment to which you've invited me. As I said, it's quite lovely. But if someone were to walk into this room, I wouldn't be able to see them. I might hear them, but I wouldn't be able to see them. And augmented reality is quite different. The technology there does not require that users employ a headset that masks their senses and their view of the outside world. And that means that augmented reality might be used in public, right? If I tried to use virtual reality with this headset right now, I'd end up bumping into a bunch of things, walking into a bunch of things, maybe even falling into a real river, which wouldn't be a good result. But if I used augmented reality, either through my mobile phone or through eyeglasses that layer digital objects on top of the real environment, I could wear that out in public and I could use that technology out in public. Um, I know we're getting close to time and I do want to wrap up, but to what extent does that use in public make a difference when we think about data protection and augmented reality?
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea that AR is something that can be enjoyed in public, that definitely opens up a whole new can of privacy considerations. So, today I could be, walking around using my mobile phone, using an AR application. In the future, we're thinking about the possibility of AR glasses, so a pair of eyeglasses outfitted with this AR technology. And if I'm walking around in public and I'm capturing a physical reality and I'm overlaying digital content on top of it, I might capture the personal information or the image or something about bystanders who I happen to encounter on the street, on the sidewalk, while I'm walking around in public using my VR or using my AR glasses. And there are a number of new questions that emerge in that situation. One is, what sort of rights do those bystanders have over their image, over their likeness, over their personal information, if that's captured by my glasses? Also, how do you deal with things like notice? If I'm wearing a pair of AR glasses that look more or less like eyeglasses, and this is an emerging technology, how do I indicate to bystanders that I may or may not be using those glasses for some sort of AR experience or recording or placing digital content potentially over top of bystanders or their belongings? There's a whole host of other questions that emerge when we think about augmented reality, which can be used and perhaps will be encouraged to be used in public rather than the privacy of one's own home.
Jeremy, I think we're at time. Thank you so much for having me here today to share your virtual environment. Two final questions, and then we can get out of here. First one is, you have explored lots of these issues in greater depth and greater detail in a variety of resources that the Future Privacy Forum is releasing this week. What's the best place for folks to find those resources? And the second question is, are there virtual beverages available?
Well, the best place to find all of our resources related to this topic is our website. Just go to fpf.org and you'll see all sorts of resources right there on our homepage. You'll have a link to our report. You'll have links to related blog posts, other helpful information. And in terms of the virtual drinks, as long as you're buying using your own virtual currency, I think we can arrange something.
Deal.